was actually on 1993 Invaders that was bought from your dad.
Oh my gosh.
And we kind of skipped over that.
Yeah.
I think I rode the Concorde for, well, all the way to 90.
Till that point, probably.
Yes, 94, we bought the 93 Invaders from your dad. And that's what I had been riding uh, all my years after that. And even all the way, we'll have to catch up to 2015 here in a little bit.
Yeah. It was, I mean, you still have that cart. Is that the one my son was on some of this year? Or one of them?
That's one of
Oh,
them.
yeah.
A buddy of mine, Eugene Bagsby, and myself, we went to your dad's and bought two 93 Invaders identical at the same time. And I have both of those carts, and your son was riding the one that you actually rode.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So let's back up a step, though. How did that come about with your dad?
Well, and I don't know the whole, because I was pretty young at the time, but I think Invader, and Jody may know more of the history of this because he's still super involved. I'm coming back into karting. I don't think Invader had a big presence here, would be my guess. They're a West Coast company. Now they're back. Jeff Nelson was the one running at the time. Now his son has started it back up, I guess, or I don't know if they went away at one point. And I was running with the group out of Indiana, the Smith brothers, and they were on Invaders. And so, I mean, I think if I remember right, the deal was trying to always push them. So the carts were always for sale, no matter, I mean, if we were running them and somebody wanted them, they had to get bought and they would get us, you know, we'd get
another one,
but they were always for sale. And I think it was to flood this market to some case. And Jody can correct me if I'm wrong, because I was obviously young and I was just worried about driving. I wasn't worried about the business side of the sport at that point. But, and I think it helped, obviously, this market for sure. We sold a bunch of them, I think.
Oh, we did, because I'll tell you what, that was the best go-kart I'd ever rode. Phenomenal. I mean, nothing against the Concorde, but we went to Paducah one time in 30-degree weather just to do some testing. And that cart stuck. Unbelievable how fast these carts were. And you could free them up where they'd still work when it warmed up. And one of our close friends, Chris Dugan, you know, Chris and Owen, I mean, Owen can tell you more about their relationship, but they were the Invader guys with TKA back in the day. The Smith brothers were with Indiana,
Evansville is where they were out of.
Yeah.
And, and we go run street races. And I mean, I won some of my biggest races on Invaders at the time. I mean, we were going up. They had offset carts. They had kind of everything, but they were trying to really flood this market. But we'd go run street races, then come back and run TKA, or, you know, it just didn't matter. We were trying to run wherever we could, and the cart was fast anywhere.
Anything you could run, you'd run it.
Yeah, we'd run it.
Any race. And
and Jody got on them, and it's pretty cool to see them back around. I mean, it was cool to see Brand on it for a while this year. We had to jump ship a little bit later in the year, but I don't know if that was really a speed thing. Now, after kind of looking back on the year, we might have been able to stick it out on that thing. So they are fast.
Yeah, I don't know if we could have, maybe with what adjustments that you made by sending your carburetor off and getting that tuned correctly for your son. I think that was a big key.
Yeah, I think that was the big thing too.
Yeah.
So you did it on the Invaders, and then you know, took a break, I guess, after you won that championship in '97.
Correct. Yeah. Oh, then it falls into the Buttrey's racing at Nashville Fairgrounds.
But you were involved in before that, though.
Well, we were.
I mean, you would.
What was it? Was running mini modifieds with James and Wade. If I'm not mistaken, that was like 91, because we were still racing go-karts at that point, even when they started racing mini modifieds.
Yeah, I mean, you helped them the whole time, and you were still racing at the same time, and, you know, making it all work, because at the fairgrounds, they raced every weekend. It wasn't like it is now. I mean, it was every Saturday night they were running down there.
Oh, all the time. All the time. And you was talking about speeds before. The fastest I've been on a go-kart is running the 5/8 mile track. And that's the big track at the fairgrounds. And we was clocked at 96 miles an hour.
Wow.
On a 5-horse Briggs and Stratton.
How many was in the lead draft?
Well, the last time I ran, there's a cart back here in the corner of the garage. I was on it, and it was a fundraiser in 2002 for Andy Kirby had passed away. And so they had a benefit race for him on the big track. And I thought, man, I'm not going to miss that for nothing. You know, Andy was my wife's first cousin. And we went out there, and there was, I don't know, there was 7 or 8 people in our class, and we just run off and left everybody. I mean, nobody drafted with us. Nobody could stay up with us. It was, but that chassis back there is amazing too. That's one of James Buttry's favorite chassis. Anytime, I don't think that chassis has ever been beat with anybody on that cart. So it's a little different.
Which is why it's still here, right?
Exactly.
I mean, you're never going to get rid of that one.
It's not going anywhere. That's like the Invaders I still have. They're not going anywhere.
They're not going anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
No, it's cool to see like the history, like that you're keeping that card and then the Invaders and stuff. And Donovan too. I mean, like we'd run I think I ran the 5/8 a couple times. Because I know when in the junior classes, they wouldn't let us run.
Right.
And stuff. But I think I ran it maybe one time on the Invader or something. But that was like going to Daytona.
Oh, yeah.
For us. I mean, it'd be big trains of 6 or 7 guys pushing each other. And I mean, imagine Daytona, just think of, a go-kart doing that stuff. I mean, that was just unreal.
Yeah. A 5/8 mile track. I mean, that's huge for a go-kart.
For a go-kart.
Yeah.
And
what some people don't realize, if they don't have the concept of racing, they wouldn't think that the go-karts would matter drafting.
Right.
Well, if you get out of the draft on a go-kart, you're going to the back.
Right.
It's huge. You know, it will pick you up 2 to 3 miles an hour just to have 2 carts, 3 carts lined up together. It is amazing. And you talking about fun to watch when they're lined up. You can tell I love racing, so it's faster the better.
So. Yeah. Well, and talk about that too, Joe. I mean, as we talk about, the race aspect of it, because I look at it, when being in the Briggs class, I think was awesome because I learned so much. You talk about the drafting, that the racecraft that's involved on the go-kart level, as far as, especially with the 206s now, or even the flatheads back then, like you had to really think about your moves and what you're going to plan out and do. Because of the draft was so important.
Oh, of course. Yeah. You had to always be thinking all the time, because you want the guy behind you to stay with you, or you're going to have to be stuck to the guy in front of you. And to make that move, you got to trust the guy behind you to make that move
to help
with
push
you.
You through. Yeah.
Exactly. So very important. Very important. Yeah. That's a huge part of drafting.
And then, so you go off, you took a break. Legends cars, they come in the mix at some point, or did you do some?
It did. It's all goes to the Buttrys again. I was down helping James and Wade and James's son, Bobby, with the truck, super trucks. And James had a Legends car that was just sitting down in his shop. And then he stayed after me. Jody, come get this car. Come get this car. You can run it. You can come up here and run it with us and all. And I finally told him, I said, one of these days I'm going to take you up on that. Well, I finally did. So I went and got the car, and 8 years later, I've been running this car, and James has been helping me. It's funny. James and them kind of got away from racing, and I would be at the track by myself. I'd go out and make a practice run. I'd come back. I'd get on the phone. I'd call James. All right, this is what the car's doing. What do I need to do? he gave me, chassis adjustments to make, and it's amazing what he's done for me in my career. Go-kart racing, people don't think, well, what's go-kart racing, a career? Well, it's a great hobby,
Right.
is what it is. It's not a career. It's a hobby, but the legend car, one of the best things I ever did. Thank you for my wife letting me do stuff like that, but still, it's wouldn't take nothing for it. It was a lot of fun.
Well, and that's what, we talk about all the time is the passion of it. I mean, if you can make a career out of it, that's great, but it's just like being a professional athlete in any sport, right? It's like the top 1% that actually get to make a living doing, what they love to do. The rest of us, it's a hobby, and you just go out and have fun, and it's what you enjoy. It's what you do. And, if you're successful, that's the ultimate goal, but you're not making a living at it. It's just because you just love it.
Correct. Yep. That's it.
I mean, you love it, but you talk, I mean, we always talk about the relationships here. I mean, that you've, from the time you started to where you are, I mean, you talk about Wade and James, just everybody that you've, I mean, it's probably some of your best friends.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yourself and Chris Dugan. I mean, we've all been involved in this, and great relationship with your dad. So many people. I mean, it's just a big racing family,
Right.
but there's some that you get so much closer to, and you really, I feel like James and Wade are more brother to me than anything, because they've always had my back, which we worked on their race team for, 15 years or so. And I mean, this is every Saturday,
Yeah.
10 to 15 hours every Saturday at the track, so
That's a huge commitment.
yeah, that's how much we love racing. Yeah. And it's a funny thing. You look at it, Owen has furthered his career in racing, and I'm still racing go-karts, which I love it. I wouldn't take anything for it, but the people we're talking about, they're all still involved in some type of racing.
Yeah.
That's how the passion is. We're getting older, but like I told my wife, I said, if I can sit down in one and get out of one, I'm going to be racing something.
Yeah. As long as the right foot can still push the gas, I'm going.
That's it. That's it.
I totally understand that.
Get after it. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, talk about the cart sitting behind you here. I mean, a little bit. I mean, we talked some racing stuff and the karting and legends cars. And I mean, this is a beautiful car that you've got.
Yeah. I want to know
the backdrop for you.
I want to know the story behind this, because well, first of all, they're pretty rare and you just don't see that many of them. So yeah, I want to hear this. I want to know where you got it. Well, I want to know the whole thing.
It started at Fairgrounds Speedway in 1991. We was down doing some testing one day. What was it? Was it the Bakers?
Brad?
His dad,
Gary
Baker, was running the track. We was down there doing a bunch of testing with one of the late models, I believe, in 91. And all of a sudden, here comes a black car. I had no idea what this car was, but I just knew, man, that is a super neat looking car. We all went over and looked at it, and I still didn't know what it was, but I found out what it was, and it kind of stuck with me. And the guy, I think it was Gary Baker's car, and he took it on the track, and he ran faster than anything had ever been down there run on a completely stock car. And I don't know, that has stuck with me over the years. And even when I met my wife, that was my dream car. I couldn't afford it. Wasn't no way I could afford one of these cars. And it just led up. My wife seen that I had diecast cars sitting in my office of the NSX. She knew how much I loved this vehicle.
Had you ever driven one?
Never.
Really?
Never drove one. So we finally we kind of come to the conclusion 9 years ago, I was fixing to make a purchase of a everyday driver car. And then I went to the wife what we was going to spend on this everyday driver car that was going to go down in value tremendously, just like any car usually does. And so I went to her and I had to sit down with her about this whole ordeal and told her what we could do. And we could actually turn this into an investment also. And she agreed with me. She said, go find what you want. And I searched and searched. And there was only, I would have liked to have a white one. They're the rarest NSX out there, the least amount made. But so if I couldn't get the white, the red with the ivory interior was what I wanted. And we finally made this purchase out of San Diego, California. I flew out there and drove the car home.
Oh, really?
4
That's
days.
awesome.
4 days, had a blast.
Yeah.
Took my time, wasn't in a hurry at all. I stopped at a dealership in Arizona, had them inspect the car. They couldn't find anything wrong whatsoever. So we come home with it. I knew there was a list of things that I wanted to do to the car because just conversation with the previous owner, some things needed to be done. So I got it home and we went to work on it. We've done just about everything in this garage right here as far as we took the motor completely out of it.
Really?
Did all the maintenance work to it, timing belt, new clutch, anything we seen that it may need later on, we went ahead and did it. So now 9 years later, I've got a car that hardly gets out of the garage unless we're going to a show. And I love it every time I get it out and get to drive it.
So it's not exactly a daily driver. So what'd you do for your daily driver? Or did you just keep whatever you had and just
I kept what I
stretch it?
had.
Yeah.
I did. Still have it.
Do you really?
Still have my everyday driver. Sure do. Yep. It's got a few miles on it, but I've retired in the meantime and I don't drive a whole lot.
Yeah.
So it's all good, So this one gets out every once in a while, but
How did you find it in San Diego? Were you forums? Or, where were you? How were you searching for the car?
mainly back then it was more eBay than anything. There wasn't as many sites like there are now. So eBay, because I had one bought, I thought, in Arizona, and that deal fell through. And it was kind of a blessing that it did, because I wound up buying this one with 20,000 less miles on it than the other one and giving the same money for it.
Yeah.
So I got to ask, you talked about the car coming back here. What were your emotions the first time you drove it? Because at this point you haven't driven one.
Yeah.
That's what I want to
Yeah.
What were you feeling like? You're flying out to San Diego for a car that, you love everything about it, but you haven't driven it yet.
Never been in one.
Never
been in one.
So what if you would have sat in it and been like, yeah, this isn't quite what I thought.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh.
Driven
Well,
it and
I guess I
maybe not.
I'm flying home.
Exactly. I would have flew home,
Yeah.
But the guy picked me up at the airport.
In it?
And yes, in it, and throws me the keys. Drive us back to the house. I'm in California,
Right.
Point me in the right direction.
Did you tell him you've never driven one or been in one?
He asked, and I told him, no, I've never have. He said, just get used to the pedals. They're close.
Right.
Because there's not a lot of room in these little cars. I was so shocked in a good way when I drove this car. If you don't know a whole lot about it, these cars do not have power steering.
Oh, I didn't know that.
They don't. The newer models, I'm going to say 90, 94 and to 2005, now they have power assisted steering. So they're a little bit easier, but once you start driving one of these, you'll never know it. Never know it. They drive, the balance of these cars are amazing, and they handle fantastic. Fantastic. I have had this one on the track up at Bowling Green, and that was an experience.
Oh, I bet. I would have done the same thing. I would have driven it home. I mean, that's what you got it for.
He thought I was kidding.
Did he really?
The guy I bought it from, he said, "You're actually going to drive this home?" I said, "Well, first of all, I'm not coming to buy something without seeing it." I said, "Either I like it. If I don't like it, you'll take me back to the airport and I'll come home." I said, "Can't imagine me not liking it." So we had good conversation with the gentleman that I bought it from. We were about the same age, and we hit it off really well. And during the 2 or 3 weeks that we were conversating back and forth, he finally told me, he said, "Jody," he said, "I just have a funny feeling that you know more about this car than I do." I said, "Well,
That's
I've been
probably true.
dreaming about this car for a long time, so I probably do, because I'm the type person, before I spend money, I research the fire out of stuff. I understand what I'm buying before I ever buy it. I don't know about the go-kart racing. I had to have a whole lot of pointers on that. I didn't know what I was doing back then.
A lot of locked up motors.
And I still don't.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. So, I still don't know a whole
I'm
lot.
guessing chainsaw motors are a little bit less expensive than a Acura
A little,
NSX.
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
little.
Yeah, you can burn through a couple of those before you start to feel any pain.
Exactly. Yes. Yes.
Well, it's a great looking car. How often do you drive it?
This year, it's probably been out of the garage 3 times.
Mm.
That's been rare. Usually I'll get it out, but with all our racing going on and running the club, it just every weekend, my wife has been in this car 3 times. She could care. Her in a car, she don't care.
That's my wife's the same way.
Yeah.
She just doesn't get it, which drives me nuts, but
Yeah.
it's not her thing.
Right.
Yeah.
She's got her thing, I got mine. So it all works out good.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
So any more? I mean, you've done everything that you got it back home, fixed everything that you wanted to fix, and I mean, any more plans for it or?
Well, I've done just about anything and everything I can possibly imagine to do to the car. Owen, I think it's about time for me to make a change and move on.
I know.
So
he keeps talking about this. I don't know what's
Yeah,
going to happen.
I'm not seeing that you're completely convinced on that quite yet.
well, when the guy comes up and gives me what I want
Yeah.
for it, then that'll probably change.
And you'll be okay with that? I mean, just
I think I will,
Yeah.
because we've got other things that we want to do, me and the wife, so yeah. And that's, a lot of people hold on to stuff. I never have been, well, except for the go-kart stuff, but that's not a really huge money issue,
Yeah.
but
right.
so I think it's time to move on, and we want to start another chapter in life of traveling.
Yep.
And that's going to help us start that.
So let's talk a little bit about TKA and your involvement there, and because you've been spending a lot of time, and I'm really new to this. Owen, since you've been, you and the boys have been out to the track or whatever. I was only there once this year. It was raining. It was cold.
You came on the worst
I
day.
know, it's totally the worst
That's what I told Jody. The worst day possible. Donovan shows up to.
And I did, and which was awesome. And I actually sent my brother a picture,
of me wrenching on something.
Yeah,
Listen to him.
Yeah. And he's like, dude, because we wanted to go karting years ago when we lived in Illinois, 30, 40 years ago, whatever, and just never did it. And so then 2 days later, he sends me a Facebook post of somebody selling a cart. He's like, what do you think? And I'm like, dude, I don't know. Let's figure this thing out a little bit here. So that's one of the reasons why I'm super excited. I mean, to be here today to talk to you about this, but I do want to know a little bit more about, how it works and what's involved and what do you do and well, and honestly, how I can help out if, if we can. And, Owen's going to be doing this for a little while. So tell us a little bit about TKA and your involvement.
Well,
Or
I'm going to add to that question, I guess, because back when he was running, and you're going to correct me if I'm completely way off basis, but back in the day, TK, if you ran well, you could go run a national race and probably be in the top 5.
Do well.
The club went through a period, and Jody can go into the timeline of this. Like, I don't think it existed for a while. And so Jody's, in my mind, is a big part of where the club is today. And I'll let him kind of continue from that. But I just wanted to add to that question, I guess, to some degree, is like the history of the club. It died off, but now it's back.
I was involved in TKA back in the 90s. Me and 3 other guys actually ran TKA back then for, I'm going to say 2 or 3 years. Back then, somebody usually would step up and take over. We'd have a meeting every year and go, okay, we're ready to, move on. We want someone else. And that's how TKA stayed around, is everybody was involved in it. And it takes a lot of people to run a day-to-day operation of the track. So I think in the late 90s, 2000, TKA just vanished. It was no longer. And we didn't really know that because we were away from it, know. So when we got back into racing after my legend cars years of that, I got back in, and I had, back to the Invaders, I had a 93 Invader here at the house, and I went to one of the local races, and the club was called Amped Up Racing. And some friends of mine from back in the day, the Skaggses, were running the Amped Up Racing along with Mike Curran. And that's kind of, I went down, and I didn't even realize racing was back going on in Nashville. So I went down to the Nashville Speedway and actually watched some races. Seen a lot of the old friends that I knew from back in the 80s and early 90s. And this was in 2015, I believe. And so since I'd given up Legends, I kind of got
Fill
in my
the
mind,
void.
I'm going, oh
He's got
gosh,
the
can I just still do this? Do I want to do this? So I called Mr. Buttrey up, and I said, James, I said, they got a club here called Amped Up Racing. I said, they're racing it at Fairgrounds in a place called Twin Fountains. He said, yeah. He said, I said, well, I said, you think the old Invader would do any good? He said, probably, just try it out. So here I go. I start getting all the equipment. The engines have changed to a overhead cam. Am I saying that correct? Oh, am I saying that correctly?
Yeah.
And so I went and bought wheels and tires and engines and clutches and all this stuff to go racing, and just pulled this old Invader out and threw a motor and wheels and tires on it. We went to a couple of races, went to Fairgrounds. After I got through racing that day, I felt like somebody took a ball bat and beat me up.
Yeah.
Which, here I am in my mid-50s back then when I started. And I thought, oh, I don't know if I can do this. And so we started going to Nashville, and we went to Twin Fountains, and we done a little racing. And what really brought me to the point where, okay, we can do this. We've got something that we can race with. We went to Bowling Green, Kentucky at NCM, and the Amped Up Club had set up a parking lot race. Hay bales, barriers, really, really nice, smooth track. And the family to beat was the Skaggses. And we was up there, and so I come home and I'm going, I got to change something on this go-kart. Well, I went back to some notes that I had from the 90s of racing at Paducah, Kentucky. I changed everything on that go-kart as if I was going back to
that
Paducah.
setup.
Yes. And we got through up there that day, and we finished second in between the Skaggs brothers. And during that whole race, all three of us, there was probably 10 or 12 of us in the race, but there was only three of us up front. And we changed positions from first, second, and third. I couldn't tell you how many times during that race. I knew at that point that we had something that we could run with. And we had an opportunity to win that race, but I chose not to take that opportunity because I would rather finish the race than not finish a race. And that's the chance you take. And second's better than, 14th.
Yeah.
But it was just so funny because Mr. Skaggs, he was laughing at me after we got through with the scales. And, these guys are on new karts that I'm racing against.
Yeah.
And I'm on a 1993 Invader. And Mr. Skaggs comes over there. He said, Jody, he said, I don't know what you done. He said, but boy, you got that thing just hooked up running. I said, let me tell you what I did. I told him, I said, I put Paducah setup on it. He just died laughing. He said, I cannot believe that thing as fast as it was. Needless to say, we took that same go-kart in 2016, run a full season. I wanted to see if I still had it. And we won TKA's, Amped Up Series championship at age 58, I believe. I was 58 years old at that point. And it was so funny that we did that. And then that's when I called my buddy Chris Dugan to come out, wanted to give him an opportunity to do some racing. And he comes back in 2017 and 18 and wins 2 more championships on that same go-kart against all these new chassis that are out there locally and all. Just, it's amazing that kart was still able to run as fast as it does. It's always been a good car. It's always been ahead of its time, but it's always, we had a blast. Owen and I still laugh about that. It just, how good these go-karts are, but.
Well, and you have to set it up. I mean, it doesn't go out there and do it by itself. I mean, the setup, the driver, I mean, those are all variables that you wouldn't think that it would make that much of a difference, but from an older kart standpoint, having something that much older, but clearly it did.
Exactly.
It does. So,
and the good thing about these new motors that we're running now, the LO206s, we haven't touched base on these motors, but they are a sealed block motor designed specifically from Briggs and Stratton for go-kart racing. So these seals cannot be broken. And so there's limited things that you can do. You can't do anything to the bottom end. And of course, you go through tech at races, at some of the big national races where they will pull the head off of it and do some intense teching.
Yeah. Make sure everybody's on the same playing field.
Yeah, it's made it a little bit cheaper, I'd say, to some degree. If you want to say racing gets cheaper, but I think it's helped as we've gotten back into it a little bit. It goes back to note taking, though, and we talk about this a lot in just the form as far as the drivers. But I mean, you went back to notes that you had from back then, and it's like keep track of all that stuff, and to go back to
it's amazing that you still had it.
Yeah, to go back to a setup that he had from the 93, 94 season and puts it on in 16 and look what it does.
Yeah.
And them notes are still over here in this cabinet. That's something that you'd never throw away.
Yeah. And I mean, you wouldn't think, again, sitting here now, I would be like, okay, could you still go do that? But why not? I mean, you did it then. What's the difference now? I mean, I'd say that's possible.
So you win
Right.
that championship with Amped.
Yeah.
TKA starts to kind of resurface, or I mean, how did that all sort of come about? Because Amp was a different series, which the Skags were running when I was running. They were around, but obviously this is not TKA. But you start to get some resurgence, I guess, with the club. And
Well, me and some other guys that was getting into racing, I got Jamie Bradford into racing go-karts. He rode one of the Invaders, and he's a huge race guy, always has been. He's been crew chief on late models, all kinds of cars and trucks. And so him and I got into it. Another friend of ours was getting involved in it, Kyle Robinson. And there was, let's just say, there were some things that needed to be improved in the local racing, and we felt like that we could bring some new flavor to the table. And that's when Kyle and myself and Jamie got together and found out that TKA was no longer, but it was available. So Kyle got it, and we started a new club.
So what's that involve? I mean, is there a chart? How does that work to be a sanctioned club?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Since nobody was using the TKA name, Kyle took care of it. I'm not sure what I was involved in it, but he found out that we could get it and start using it. So we had a really slow start in the beginning. We had a tough time because we had two clubs in Tennessee trying to make a go at it. We didn't have a place to race. So we reached out to Carol Ford down in Dixon that has a track, more of an old tri-oval track, but we put barriers up and tried to make a road course out of it. Things didn't go real well. We didn't have a lot of people to show up. We had the dedicated ones that was trying to help us get TK off the ground to make something work. So that year went by, and we wound up going to Mike Curran and Skaggs and going, what do you think about us merging together? And because I feel like that's the only way we're going to keep this alive, because his attendance went down and ours was hardly anything. So we come together and we did that for a year, and then we turned it strictly over TKA, and that's where we've been for the last, I think, 4 years now, and we're really we're growing.
That's what I was going to ask you. I mean, how do you get the word out? What are you doing in those circles? I don't know anything about.
I think people
how
just,
that works.
We don't do a lot of advertising, and that's what we're lacking. We need to advertise more. We do have a website, but somebody's got to know something about racing to even punch in go-kart racing,
Right.
So, but it seems like every time we show up at the track, not only one or two, we have anywhere from 4 to 5 new people coming up wanting to know, how do we get involved in this? We get phone calls, we get emails. It's amazing how it has taken off. We are a nonprofit organization. So, of course, we want to pay our bills and we have to rent the track. Sometimes when we go to the track, we need to have, a minimum of like 22 carts to break even for the day, not counting the 14 people that we have working that day. So, and we barely got by in the first days of TKA. We had a rough time. And so, talking about 2022 carts, now we're 4 years later and we're pushing the envelope of having 50 carts every race. That's phenomenal.
Yeah.
I feel like that this club and racing is just going to continue to grow. Great for kids. Kids can start at 5 years old.
Yeah, that's outstanding.
I
think when I was there the other weekend, there was the one, he had to have been
Yeah.
right at 5.
Right
I
at
mean, if that's where
5.
he started, because he was an itty bitty thing, man.
Yeah.
But out there just wheeling it out. That was cool.
Rain and all. Wasn't it?
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
a little wet, but it was fun to watch. So I mean, it was fun to be there and see. I wish I could have stayed the whole day, but yeah, it was cool, which is, again, gets me excited about it. Like I said, I texted my brother right away, and I think this year for me, I want to come out and spend some more time and check things out. And I don't know that I'll ever race, but I would love to support and bring attention to it, if we can. And this is one of the things that we've talked about on DrivinLife, to do more, to be more involved with the youth in racing. And we've done some of that, and we're going to continue to do that. But yeah, man, I think that's awesome.
No, it's a cool thing. And Jody's head of tech on the weekends and stuff. So it's
keeps you busy.
It does keep you humping all day long.
Yeah,
I tell you,
he's humping the whole day when I've been out there.
We have made it a little bit easier, but when you have families, new people coming, and they're wanting to stand and talk to you, because I feel, Jamie, he's running the tower with all the scoring, him and his wife. Then there's a flagman up there. And then we've got another guy and his family, his whole family. He drives and one daughter races. His wife is a nurse. She's our EMT on site, and she works the track. And another one of his daughters actually works the track also. So, we've all got a place to be. We've got to have somebody standing at the scales every time a group comes off, to make sure everybody weighs. It's a process. Jamie and I, we don't race at our local events because we know what it takes to run this event. So we've tried to race it, and every once in a while, he'll get in a car and he'll come, Jody, you care if I drive this car? And I said, go for it. Have fun, so, but, it's all, and that's all we're doing. We're having fun. If we've got the time, we got the manpower, hey, let's do it.
Right.
No, it's been, I mean, it's great for the families for sure to see that. And I mean, I've had a blast coming back. I mean, and doing some of the stuff. I mean, as far as watching my kids or going, if we went to Newcastle, whatever, just being involved again at that level is, and we've talked about this, Donovan, probably off record, but I mean, it's so much fun. The pressure's not there.
Yeah.
And it's just, let's just go have a good time. And I've enjoyed watching my kids improve. And Jody's been my sort of silent crew chief in the background. He's the one that kind of calls the shots. I just listen to him.
Yeah, you just execute.
Well, I don't know if I execute, but I try. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Put in the effort.
I put in the effort. Yeah.
His boys are doing a fantastic job.
Yeah.
And what my whole goal was when I called Owen and, we started connecting again about racing, was to have his son in the same go-kart that he raced back in the day. And our goal was to actually win a championship. We kind of fell a little short of that. I think we know why.
Yeah.
But you live and learn, but just knowing that they both drove the same go-kart, I think that means a lot.
No, it does. I mean, it's been cool for me to see that. And that was our goal, is to hopefully Brant was going to win the sportsman championship in that kart. 20 something years later,
right,
in a kart that's from 1993. But yeah, we fell a little short second, and we had to change the last 3 races. We went to an MGM chassis.
Correct.
And but it's still been, he learned a ton. And then we had the little one that came out of nowhere and just he wasn't even going to race this year, and look at him now.
Yeah.
So he's the one I think I got to be watching after. He might be the next one on the Invader. when he gets out of
Oh.
cadet kart. Yeah.
And
Maybe
he's already won a championship.
and he's already had it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Trust me, he tells me that every day. That's the problem.
Dad, I'm the good driver.
Yeah, I know. He's already trying to take my job.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe one day he will.
Yeah, he might. Yeah. He says that his brother and him are winners because they win all the time. And I guess I'm a loser right now. So, but
Hey, it's nothing greater than following in your dad's footsteps, you know?
Or even just doing, the activity, just being there and doing it. And I know your schedule's really tough, to be there sometimes, but even when, for me and my son, just to hang out, is really, it doesn't really matter what we're doing, but when you got a passion like that, when you've got something that you both are driving towards, that, I mean, he'll remember this forever.
yeah, and and not to kind of bring it on me, but it's like Jody's been such an influence there because I am gone a little bit, and I think it's been good for them. When I sit back and look at this whole situation, they've had to learn how to communicate, if it's with Jody or Brian or Chris Dugan or the people that are there. So when I show up, I think I made 3 races this year with them.
Right.
It's a little different because I think it's a shock to them at the same time, like how to adjust to it. But I've relied on all these people to make this happen for them, and Jody's been the mainstay of that person to make that work, because it wouldn't work if it wasn't in place. And so I've loved to see them grow and what they're doing, because they've got to learn. I think racing brings so much to the table that they have to learn how to communicate with other people that they may not know that well,
Right.
but they're getting to know them, but it's not me. And so I think that's a great
Yeah.
thing,
No, I
because
think you're right.
in racing, it's like what's the cart doing, or if you made a mistake or you're trying to get better at your driving, you've got to communicate that to somebody.
Well, and
So,
you know how that is. I mean, sometimes it's almost better when it comes from somebody else, right?
Yes.
to some degree,
From
yeah.
a parent perspective, it's always,
Yes.
you'll tell your kids something 100 times and it's like, water on a duck's back, and they hear it from somebody else and they're like, oh, it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. It's like, wait a minute. I've been telling you this all along. So,
Yeah, because at some degree, I just want to be there. I just want to be dad.
yeah,
I don't want to be anybody else. I don't want to be the driver. And I think that's why I enjoy those weekends, because it's just
Yeah.
me. I mean, my kids are doing what they want to do. And of course, I sometimes I have to bite my tongue, but I want them to make the mistakes and
Right.
put them in that situation. But I know Brant, we kind of went an up and down year a little bit with him, but that's fine. I think they need to understand that and learn that on their own. And instead of me stepping in,
Yeah.
trying to adjust that before they make those mistakes. But
Well, yeah, because if you learn it on your own, then you can, you know what it feels like, right? Because you've done it, instead of just correcting something before it happens.
yeah.
So yeah, I totally get that.
So Jody, we talked about TKA and you've moved away from the Invaders, but I think you're with another great family as far as MGM. I mean, kind of go into them a little bit and what they do. And I don't know Paul personally. You do, and now that's the cart that Brant's on.
Mhm.
Lucas is still on a Merlin, but they seem like I've been out of karting for a little bit until this year, but they seem like a family-run kind of chassis company, or just karting in general. Like they have a really family atmosphere for sure.
They are. Paul and April Rice, they're out of Concord, North Carolina. They build these chassis and they've got such a following. And what's the good thing about it is, you're always talking about racing families. Well, if you go to a track and you're on an MGM, you see somebody else on an MGM, if you've got questions and say, you're not running as fast as you feel like you should be, well, you can go talk to them
Yeah.
and they're going to help you. I mean, and that's what Paul and April have designed. This is what they want. They want, I mean, Jamie Bradford is one and a good example of, everybody knows at Newcastle, Indiana, if you're on an MGM and you've got a question, go talk to Jamie. Jamie's the guy. He's going to help you understand if you can explain to him what
it's
you're
doing.
wanting.
Mhm.
Exactly. Jamie's been excellent with the MGM family. And I love what Paul and April has done with their MGM. they've been in business for several years now, but I think over the last 2 years, they have grown like crazy. And I mean, I own 3 MGMs right now that I carry 2 to the track, set up a little different so I can do my own testing. You know, and I'm following right along with what Jamie's been doing, because Jamie has went out of town with the MGM and actually won championships at a track that you're competing against 30 to 40 guys on the track every time you go up there. Their following up there at Newcastle is unbelievable. Their competition is beyond none. He's went up there and really done well, and we've done well. We've had good finishes up there, but you know, you're never satisfied with a second place finish.
Right.
It's what it boils down to. But Paul's got a great piece that he's developed. You know, we got a new year fixing to come around. You know, I know he's still selling chassis, and good thing about it, if you go to one of the big national events, Paul in April's always there.
Yeah.
You know, you can talk to Paul, and I mean,
Shoot, you got him to a local event this year.
they did. They did. They
came-
come to
yeah.
Tennessee,
Did they?
TKA down this year, and they actually come down and parked right next to me, and next thing I know, they're pulling out a chassis. I mean, I'm talking about a bare chassis, just the bars. A lot of people don't understand what a bare chassis is, but next thing I know, within a couple of hours,
It's
that
set up.
cart is completely ready to race.
Wow.
But that's what, they thought, well, this is a good opportunity. And there was a family from Memphis, Tennessee coming up to purchase that car. So it was good to see that. Now that family is coming up racing with us.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Paul and April are great people. Just glad to see what they're doing is a success. And, we love to go over to Charlotte and race with them and just be around them. They're just good family to be around.
Will that be part of your traveling?
What?
You're going to take a cart with you when you travel, when you get the RV? And
we'll have to plan that one out with the wife, you know. Yeah, hey, that's in my mind.
Yeah.
Sure.
You know, but I don't know if it's in hers.
Well, they don't take up a ton of space. I mean,
Well,
He's got a great trailer.
Yeah.
Pull behind that
When
RV.
when you hook up the 24-foot trailer behind you, she's going,
That's-
where are we going?
I put the smart car in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, that's it.
You never say never. You never know what's going to happen. So
Yeah. I'd love to travel and do some racing down in Florida during the winter, but
right.
it
Seems like a win-win to me.
Yeah.
She's in Florida, you're racing. It's all good.
you would think so.
I would.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the way my mind works. Yeah.
She needs a vehicle where she can get around, and that's fine.
Throw that in the trailer.
That's paying for the RV.
Yeah, that's paying for the
Oh, yeah, that's
RV.
right.
Yeah.
I forgot about that. That's
Yeah.
right.
We've got a couple of years to come up with, solutions to these things. So we're trying to figure it out.
That's good. That's good.
Go-karting will be involved somehow. I mean, you talk about, you came back to, kind of your second career of karting. I mean, you're not slowing down by any means whatsoever.
It doesn't look like it.
I'm trying to keep up with him. He's getting skinny as could be. It's like, man, makes me feel bad. I gotta keep dropping weight.
On.
Yeah, but I got to put a whole bunch of lead on my cart to make weight.
make up.
It's I hope I don't lose any more weight, but we're good. Long as we, like I said, long as we can get in and out of one.
Yeah.
I want to race something. When I'm not competitive, like I've always told my wife, when I'm not competitive, that's when I quit.
Stop. Yeah.
So.
Well, Jody, I appreciate it, man. Donovan, anything else? I mean, we covered a lot of ground.
No,
today.
Yeah, we did. And it was awesome. So
thank you.
Thanks for giving us the opportunity, first of all, to come out and stop by. And, I really appreciate, what you and the people that are helping you, are doing because if you don't do it, it goes away. Right. And so somebody's got to step up to the plate, and somebody's got to do these things. And it's a huge time commitment. And, you know, it takes away from other opportunities that you might have or other things that you have to do. So, you know, thank you for that. And I'm looking forward to whatever we do next year. I mean, we're going to be involved in some way, you know, coming out to the track and doing something. And
Yeah, we've had Brand on.
Yeah.
Brand on talking about his karting, you know, kind of midsummer, I think, or maybe spring. We had him on.
Yeah.
So, and I'd like to get more into it. And Don and I talked about this. It's probably been our lack of effort a little bit that we want to get more young kids on and just, you know,
Well, I
have
wonder-
fun with them a little bit.
I mean, we'll just bring this to the track and
Yeah.
do it
Yeah.
right there. Yeah. I mean, it's hard. It's like everything else, you know, we just got to find the time to do it. But
I got to find a crew chief that day. That's been the biggest
Yeah.
thing. Because, you know, you've been with me. It's dad,
It's
dad,
not-
dad.
Yeah, it's
like,
nonstop.
Nonstop. So,
Yeah.
but
yeah, that's good. And that's exciting. So, you know, thank you for what you do. Thank you for having us over. And we look forward to 2022.
Thank you. I really appreciate what
Get-
y'all have done.
get you a
And
championship, man.
Yeah.
It'd be good if y'all showed up at the track and did one at the track.
Oh, yeah.
It'd be
Well, we'll
fantastic.
Oh, we
do-
probably will. Yeah.
We'll do that for
We'll
sure.
do that on a schedule that I'm there.
Yeah.
For Donovan, he can just come do it on his own. He doesn't need me. So,
Well, clearly I do.
yeah. But definitely we'll have DrivinLife a part of TK and
Yeah.
Jody. Thanks for everything that you do for me personally, but then
Yeah.
for the club too, because
Okay.
that's there's a lot of people I think that you guys go unappreciated to some degree. And, you know, the reason we're able to go race is because of what you
Yeah.
put into it and the Bradfords put into it and Adam
Mhm.
and everybody involved. That,
Yeah, it's
that
all
gives us
it's
a
all the
place.
behind the scenes stuff that nobody sees, and the hours that you put into it. I mean, even at the track, like you just said, you know, you can't go race because you're constantly, you know, running the scales or you know, putting out fires if there's a problem here or whatever the situation may be. And um when you just show up at the track, run your cart and pack up and go home every day, and you don't really recognize that, you know, and see the commitment. But so that's why I think it's important to acknowledge, you know,
Yeah.
you and all the people that help you do this and make it work.
We appreciate that. Thank
Yeah.
you. We do. It's amazing at the track, the dads and moms that come up to you and tell you thank you.
Yeah.
It is amazing. That's just part of the family,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know.
That's the really cool part about
It
it.
is. Oh gosh,
Yeah.
you know. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
You know, especially when a 6-year-old kid comes up to you
Mm.
and tells you thank you. We
Yeah.
really have fun. You know,
Yeah.
that just gets you.
Yeah.
You're going makes you want to just keep doing it. So
Yep. I agree with that. It's giving me goosebumps just
Yeah.
talking about it.
yeah, yeah.
It's cool.
All right, man. Well, thanks for having us today.
Thank you. I
All right.
appreciate it. Enjoyed it.
We'll see you.